Hey everyone! So today's video comes per a viewer request. They said, Kay, you've often mentioned your years living in an ashram. What was that experience like? I would like to know more about it. And I realized that you're right. I have not spoken a lot about what that experience in my life was like, how those years unfolded, how I ended up there, and what I learned from that experience. So I thought today I would dedicate a little bit of time about talking to that wonderful and exciting and mystical period of my life where I was a full-time ashram resident, yogi, meditator, and spiritual aspirant. So if we haven't met before, hey, it's a pleasure to meet you. I'm Kay. I am a yogic, spiritual, meditative, ecstatic life coach. And if you've watched all my videos before and know you like them, please do hit the subscribe button as well as the bell next to it so you can be alerted to upcoming videos that I post. So let's just start off by saying, what the hell is an ashram? What does that word even mean? Well, in India, an ashram would refer to a house of a guru or a collection of yogi meditators living together under the tutelage of someone who is hopefully enlightened, or at least quite a ways further down the path towards enlightenment. It's considered a part of your life where you are intensely dedicated to your own personal maturation, spiritual development, and connecting deeply with the divine. Now for me, I grew up Methodist and then later non-denominational Christian and went to church every week with my parents and continued that into college. And growing up, I'd always felt like I had a very strong personal connection with the divine. Like I can remember laying in bed at night having conversations with God and feeling like I heard God talk back to me. And it was also fairly common for me growing up to have these very mystical, energetic experiences of feeling like the world just erupting around me and swirling around and being transported to this really intensely blissful experience. And so as I started to get older, I wanted to cultivate a deeper connection with that. I wanted to dive into the mysticism. I wanted to dive into these mind-altering experiences through spirituality. I just very much sensed that I wasn't able to really find answers to those questions within the church. When I would talk to people who had run the institutions I'd go to worship in, they would say, well, join the choir or do more church drama or a youth group. And I'm like, that's not really it. Like this isn't tapping into source energy for me. This isn't giving me the mystical. This is just kind of mental, and I want something more. So my sophomore year of college, I decided I was going to start exploring other spiritual traditions and see if any of them spoke to me. So I can remember just sitting on my laptop, like Googling Mormonism, Buddhism, Hinduism, Islam, like anything and everything that would potentially be a resource for me to consider. I went to Northwestern University, which is in Evanston, Illinois, just north of Chicago. And right there, just 10 minutes north of the campus, is the Baha'i Temple, the only Baha'i temple in North America. So I went there to visit that. But no matter what I found, nothing was making me say, yes, this is the answer. This is what I want. Now, simultaneously, and I didn't even think of it as being a spiritual path initially, I started to get really involved in yoga classes, physical yoga classes. I'd go to the gym, I'd go for an hour and a half of yoga, and I really loved it. It was so meaningful for me getting into my body, especially because at that time I was very disconnected from my body, very disconnected from myself, and wanted to be elsewhere, wanted to be someone different, wanted to escape. It's part of why I became an actor and was studying acting in college. And there were a few yoga teachers I really connected with, one of whom offered an hour of meditation after an hour and a half of yoga. And I would try to go to that once a week if I could, and it really resonated with me. It really spoke to me. Like 6 or 7 months after doing that, the teacher of the class said, you know, I think you'd probably benefit from doing a yoga teacher training program. You may want to consider doing that. I should put a caveat here. I'm trying to talk about a point in my life that at that time I really loved and I felt so nourished by, and it so spoke to me. Now reflecting back, in hindsight, I have some difficult feelings about these people and these places because I couldn't realize at the time how much I was being manipulated, how much I was being used in a way. Like, I just thought at the time she was saying that because she thought, oh, well, you have this tremendous prowess with yoga. And that is definitely part of it, right? Like from the very beginning, I could do all the yoga poses and I could meditate really well. And I definitely came in with a ton of past life karma to be able to access that. But I also didn't recognize she was saying that to me because she was running her first teacher training program and wanted more people to sign up. And she was trying to get me. So everything I talk about today, there's both my experience in the moment, which is genuinely very positive, and then my experience in reflection, which is a little bit like, there was more than I was aware of. But you know what? That's the experience of being young and just going with the flow. And these are not choices I probably would have made now, but at that point in my life, it's what I needed. And had I needed something different, I would have ended up different. And had I needed to be aware of how there were things maybe going on underneath the surface that I wasn't aware of, then I probably would have had that awareness before this happened. So I couldn't do her yoga teacher training program, but I now was in my junior year, and that summer I got cast in a play, and there was a month off from when the play ended before when classes resumed, and the larger yoga community she was a part of was holding a yoga teacher training and meditation teacher training during those 4 weeks. And I also had a scholarship that was willing to pay for me to go do it because I said, hey, this is part of my training as an actor. I think that learning to be centered and focused is really valuable for that. Will you pay for me to go? They said, yeah. So I ended up signing up to go do their yoga teacher training program. And through these weekly meditation classes I'd go to with her, I became acquainted with the head of their lineage, their guru or teacher, and already was very much resonating with him. I got a copy of one of his books. It was the first time I ever had the tangible experience of feeling my heart chakra open was while reading that book. There was genuine depth and spirituality there that I could truly, truly sense. And I wanted to be a part of it. I wanted to feel like I was connecting with the mystical, and this was quickly becoming clear to me that this was a gateway to explore that. So summer comes, I do my play, the play ends, go right from the stage door to the airport, fly to Colorado, and start doing this yoga teacher training program just outside of Boulder. For me, it was an experience of coming home. It was an experience of absolute magic and wonderment and majesty and like, yes, this is it. This is the spiritual depth I have been seeking. I had meaningful conversations with some of their resident swamis or people who had taken vows of service, celibacy, poverty to serve the community, and talked about my conflict of leaving the Christian tradition I'd been a part of and transitioning to this. Again, in hindsight, probably should never have been a conversation that had been had. One of the things I'm a huge believer of, and so is people like the Dalai Lama, that you should never feel like you're ever jettisoning your spiritual path that has brought you here. The Dalai Lama says that he doesn't think anyone should ever convert to Buddhism, that you should find enlightenment within the tradition that you were raised. So for me, I wish I had been taught to be more accepting about the faith I had come into and not feel like it was something I had to reject to become a yogi. I personally believe in inclusive spirituality, which means there's room for everything. You can be meditating with Shiva and praying to Jesus. Doesn't matter. Do it all. So I really wish one of those people had kind of been like, you don't need to, this isn't a or situation, it can be an and. But frankly, that's not what that tradition, that ashram I was a part of was like. They were very exclusionary. It was, we are the one way. Do not listen to any other teachers. Do not partake in other traditions. Don't even go to another meditation center or take another yoga teacher's physical yoga class. It was a very insular, which again should have been a warning sign for me, but hey, we learn, we grow, and we evolve. I know better now. So I'm here at this ashram, and the people living at this residential ashram have dedicated their lives to this endeavor. They basically can't leave. They get 1 day off a week. They get paid very minimal amounts of money, because their food and lodging is being provided for them, it's hardly anything. They only get one vacation every year or every other year. It's super, super hardcore. Any major decision, if you want to get married, if you want to have children, if you want to go get a job, you have to get the blessing of their guru. So again, is there reason for this? Yes, there is. And there is definitely historical tradition to support this way of life. Again, in hindsight, I probably should have seen those as saying, there are some control issues here. This maybe it isn't all as kosher as I would hope it would be. But at that time, it made sense. At the ashram, you have to be at morning meditation class every morning. And at that ashram, they start meditation class, I believe, at 5 a.m. or 5:30 a.m. If you aren't being given special practices that you have to do before that. Then there's 15 minutes of opening chants, about an hour of the main chant called the Guru Gita, which is a song in praise of the guru. Now, it's meant to mean the guru that's inside all of us, or the guru that exists in another plane of consciousness, but it also means the living guru who runs the tradition, which again brings in a little weirdness because you're asked to give over all your power, all your authority, all your self, all your willfulness to this enlightened being inside, great, to the enlightened master above you, okay, but also this physical person, which if they are truly enlightened and they have your best intent truly at heart, then I can see why that is something that's possible, or why that could be something that could be suggested. But I'll be honest with you, I have met plenty of beautiful, evolved souls, many of whom I consider enlightened, but everyone has been fully human, meaning we make mistakes, we have foibles, we do shitty stuff sometimes, and that's okay. We're still human. And so to give over your full authority to another being is a complicated situation. And this has become so much an issue that in Vajrayana Buddhism, the Tibetan Buddhism, tantric or mystical form of Buddhism, they're actually deciding that maybe we need to get rid of the guru altogether. This guru figure, which has been considered one of the 3 gems of Buddhism, maybe we've just reached a point in our collective evolution and where we are in the culture where it's not safe to have this anymore. People have enough agency, enough self-understanding, but there's also so much possibility for abuse when you give somebody over fully your power that maybe we just can't do this anymore. So you do this long chant to the guru, one of the lines of which is, if you ever forsake the guru, you will be reborn as a demon on a waterless planet. And even though you're not saying that in English, that's a pretty mindfucky thing to have to say every single morning of your life. After meditation, you go to a collective breakfast that has been prepared by the ashram residents, so some people will not be in meditation, will be doing that. You have about 45 minutes to eat. It is, of course, vegetarian because most Indian spiritual traditions are. I am not now, but starting then and for the next 8 or so years, I became vegetarian, sometimes vegan, because I was told that's what I needed for my spiritual growth. And then you would set to work for the day. You would work from roughly 8 a.m. to noon. You weren't really encouraged to take any sort of break. You were not allowed to go off and do your own thing. You're not allowed to go take naps. You're not allowed to go and do whatever you want. You have to report to someone and you have to do seva or selfless service for the community. Now, since I was there doing yoga teacher training, I was in classes, and some of the residents' seva was to teach those classes. At noon, there would be another 40 minutes for lunch. Again, a vegetarian meal, very delicious, prepared very mindfully and yummy. You would, after each meal, have to help clean up everything, so scrub the tables, do the dishes, mop the floors, including the people in this training, so I would partake in that as well. And then it was work again in the afternoon from roughly 1 o'clock to 5 o'clock, where again you'd go do physical labor or be in the training. Physical labor could range from chopping wood, repairing roads and fences, to cleaning the guest houses, to doing construction work, so it really varied. 5 o'clock, you would have a small quick meal, and then you'd have to go to evening temple. So you go back, get showered, changed again, put on some colorful and nice clothing, go to temple where there would be a half hour of chanting and a half hour of silent meditation. If it wasn't a led class by either the guru or one of his senior teachers called acharyas or swamis, then that would be probably a little bit longer. By then it was 8 o'clock. You might have an hour to do what you want, but then you'd have to go to bed pretty early because then you're having to be up by 5 a.m. pretty much at the latest to be at meditation class. So it's a very rigorous, disciplined lifestyle. And again, the people who have chosen to live there don't really get to leave. Like, that's their life. And even if they're on their off day, they're still expected to be at every meditation class. Now, for me, I saw this and I was like, heck yeah, this just resonates for me. And I think that just speaks to the fact that we all have past life experiences that create karma, and that karma pulls us into things that we find enticing and exciting. And for me, I was like, this is it. This is what I want to be a part of. Yes. I asked for special permission to go to the guru's classes that were in another ashram just down the mountain, still outside of Boulder. I think right when I got back, or maybe while I was there, I asked if I could be officially his student. Now, in a yogic tradition, to take a guru is actually considered a really big deal, because it's not just somebody who agrees to teach you meditation, it's somebody who vows to help you reach enlightenment however many lifetimes it takes, that they'll reincarnate with you again and again, and they'll do whatever it takes to help you go from wherever you are to full liberation. At least that's what I was told. There's this very strong karmic element. They take on some of your karma, some of your baggage, and help you process it so you can get there faster. And they are meant to be your servant. They are meant to help you grow and evolve at as rapid of a rate as possible. Now, while I was there, I got a phone call from this woman who recommended I check them out back in Chicago, and she said, hey, we've decided to open our own yoga studio. Why don't you come and teach for us? And I said, okay, that sounds great. I just did this training. I wasn't really planning on teaching. I did it mainly for myself, but sure, why not? I'll come and teach some yoga. That'd be great. So I came back to Chicago, immediately went right back to school because classes were starting again. She assigned me 2 6 a.m. yoga classes at their new studio. And it's a new studio, so hardly anyone's showing up for 6 a.m. classes. So I think that whole year I taught for like 1 or 2 people. So I'd make like $6 for the hour of teaching. And I didn't have a car, so I would bicycle down before sunrise through the winter of Chicago on my bike and just pedal down there 35 minutes, go teach. They started doing these intense morning practices at that yoga studio, and this woman was, even then I acknowledge, she was just like a hardcore bitch. She was like, if you're not here every single morning for meditation, I'm not gonna take you seriously, so you might as well fuck off. And I was like, okay, well, I wanna do this, I wanna grow, I wanna be in the spiritual tradition, so fuck it. I might be in college and having to be at the theater and rehearsal and up till 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, because that's what college life is like, but I'm gonna do it, I'm gonna show up. So I just basically stopped sleeping. Like, again, hindsight 2020, I believe your spiritual path should unfold organically. It should work for you and your life and where you're at. And yes, while you need some discipline, like you need to show up when you say you're going to show up, no one should ever be expected to go on like 2 to 4 hours of sleep chronically and expect it to be okay. That person should have been like, well, we can talk about this after you graduate. I think just go do you, chill out, come when you can come, but just relax. Just relax. Gonna be okay. But she was like that with everyone. It was like, you're either fully in or you're out, and I don't have time for you. You know, it's somebody who I have some complex. So I did. I dove head in. So all senior year, I'm there pretty much every effing morning. Like, I remember even going after an all-night film shoot where I was up all night having to be on set, and just drove from there, biked from there right down to this yoga studio. And then they complained to me. They're like, you smell bad. You shouldn't show up like this. I'm like, girls, I did the best I could, so chill out. Of course, I didn't say that. I just said, oh yes, of course. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. We learn and grow. Now, as my senior year was ending, they decided that, hey, let's open an ashram of our own in Chicago. They got the blessings from their guru. I had, in addition to the morning classes, I would many times bike down a second time in the week on Monday or Thursday nights if I didn't have theater or rehearsal or work to attend the virtual class with their teacher. But he had given the blessing to open a small ashram on the north side of Chicago. So they asked would I want to be one of its first residents. So it was this woman, her husband, their best friend, and me. It wasn't going to open until the fall after graduation, so instead of moving back into my parents' house, I decided to spend that summer living with my grandma, who lived 30 minutes away from the yoga center, and still every morning drove in without fail because that was what I was told was expected of me. Now, when I graduated from Northwestern, I moved into being a professional actor in Chicago, and right away I was working pretty much nonstop. And when you're working in the theater, that means you're going to be out and about until usually 11 p.m., midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning, because you're at the show, you have after show breakdown, rehearsals, talk-throughs, you have guests that you need to go have a cup of coffee with afterwards, you have to go see plays, you have to go do things. Again, there was no sleep happening. I was not sleeping. The fact that I was driving in a vehicle at 6 a.m. on usually no sleep, I am floored that I was as safe as I was. Like, that's not okay to ask somebody with chronic sleep deprivation to drive while it's still dark out in the super early of the morning to come to a meditation class when I could have just meditated at home when I got up. That would have been fine. But I didn't. August came and I moved into the ashram. Now, even before the ashram was open, there was this huge expectation by this woman that we do a similar amount of seva to these people living in the residential community in Colorado. So anytime we had free time on the weekend or during a weekday, we were expected to come to the yoga studio and constantly clean it. Like, that is the cleanest space anyone has ever seen. Every day the floors were swept and mopped. Every week the walls were washed. The bathrooms were cleaned 2 or 3 times a day. We organized the bookshelves once a week. Like, everything was expected to be kept immaculate because this seva was a part of your life. So once the ashram opened, we were expected to do the same. There were charts up on the wall of what you were expected to do day in and day out, and it was rather intense. Now, even though we weren't up in the mountains like the main centers were, this community had 2 ashrams in Colorado and 1 main one in Hawaii, and then a bunch of smaller centers around. I don't know where they are now, but then there was like Chicago, Denver, Fort Collins. I think there was one in Boston. They were all over. So she wanted us to stay as busy and to treat this like the big retreat centers as much as we could. So we also did communal meals. that we were expected to cook for one another. We had to clean the entire building every single day. We had to go out and scrub the sidewalks and the street out front. You were not allowed to take breaks. You were not allowed to nap, which was a huge thing for me because I wasn't able to sleep at night because I was still going out to work and go on auditions and perform. And the other people who lived there taught yoga classes, so they would go leave to teach yoga classes elsewhere, but I wasn't sleeping. I wasn't allowed to just hang out. You weren't allowed to just sit around with a book or watch TV. There wasn't a TV, or be on your computer. You had to work at all times except from 8 p.m. to 9 p.m. That was like the 1 hour where you could do whatever you wanted. And in addition to sleep deprivation, I'm now eating vegetarian and vegan full time. I'm starting to get sick a lot because for me, what I'm putting my body through, because being an actor, I'm still going to the gym every day, twice a day some days, because I was like, I need to stay in shape. I'm not eating well, I'm not sleeping, I'm dedicating all my life force either to working as an actor or scrubbing the floors and trying as much as I can to grow. Frankly, how they did not treat me very kindly most of the time. And I don't want to speak ill of them because I don't want to. When I originally was planning on making this video, I was going to take a very different angle about these people. And I don't ever want to speak ill of anyone. I got what I needed out of this experience, and had I needed something different, I would have had a different experience. There were a lot of days I spent crying because I was very purposely excluded from a lot. Like, they would tell me that I wasn't allowed to speak when I walked into a room. They would organize an advanced meditation class or an advanced meditation teacher training program and invite people who weren't even living there, people who were just in the peripheral community to partake, but I would be told I wasn't allowed to participate. Like, they would bake other people like 3 birthday cakes, but then forget my birthday. Like, that kind of shit happened a lot. And again, in hindsight, I think they wanted me mostly for the money my parents were paying for me to live there, that they just wanted this resident. But that's another thing. At this point, I'm totally closeted. And you can see by this schedule, I have no opportunity to go date. I have no opportunity to go meet anyone. Like the residential community else in the other parts of the country, you're not allowed to spend the night elsewhere. You have to be at morning meditation every morning, regardless of how late you get back. You're not allowed to leave for vacation. So I couldn't go spend days with my parents or go to them without the express permission of the ashram, and I was only allowed to do it on very selective occasions. And if I did go travel, it was usually to the main ashram in Colorado, where I would go 4 to 5 times a year to go do more selfless service, to go clean and chop wood and to volunteer. This is pretty much how my life continued for the next several years. At some point I did begin my coming out experience, so I did start going on dates, but I would still like go on my dates and then hurry back to the ashram, and if I want to sleep over at a guy's house, I kind of had to do it in secret and then rush out at like 4 a.m. to make it back for meditation class. Now I'm doing something that I normally don't ever do. I was actually editing this video and came back to record a little something extra to add in because I was realizing as I'm listening to this, it's like, gosh, Kay, this sounds pretty damn horrible. Why on earth would you stay here for 7 years? And the truth is as hard as it was, as mean as a lot of the people were, you know, with all my sleep deprivation, I was getting yelled at every morning in meditation class for falling asleep. And it's like, bitch, I haven't slept. I'm going to fall asleep. Despite all that, I still was finding a very deep, profound connection to the mystical. I was finding an understanding of God and consciousness and life that I had been seeking. So for me, it was worth it. For me, it was worth enduring these people and these uncomfortable situations because I was getting what I wanted. And at the end of the day, when you decide what you want and you are willing to do whatever it takes to get it, then you'll pay whatever price is being asked, including this. For me, it was worth it. It gave me what I wanted. Eventually, I reached a point where I had an opportunity to move to Los Angeles because I got cast in a play and it's something I'd been working towards in my life as an actor. So I said yes, and I finally moved out. Even when I had left to go do touring shows before, I kind of still paid to keep my room there so I could be a part of it, but this time I said, okay, I'm done. This is my opportunity. And I didn't feel too bad about it because around that time, the woman and her husband who ran this center, decided that they wanted to shut it down and move to Colorado so they could be closer to the main community. Although they did give me a ton of guilt that I wasn't staying to do selfless service to help them pack up the ashram, but you do what you can. It would end up being about 6 or 7 months after I moved out when I officially broke ties with the community overall. There's a lot of drama that I'm not going to get into in these videos. And despite all these challenges that I'm saying, the whole time I was there, I felt super grateful for the opportunity, and I saw myself growing tremendously. Like, I felt like it created real and positive change in my life, and that was something that for me was my biggest goal. I just wanted to become a better person. I wanted to understand spirituality better, and living here gave me that opportunity. I loved the people who were involved in this community. They're wonderful human beings for the most part, who I still very much miss, because once you leave, once you are no longer part of this tribe, you are excommunicated. You cannot just be friends with the people who are still partaking. You're gone. Again, hindsight 2020, I should have seen that. Well, that's probably a sign that things are not as healthy as they could be. It was a profoundly magical period of my life. It is a time that I'm very grateful for. I basically gave all of my 20s to the ashram experience, and it's something that, if it calls to you and you find a community that you believe in that feels balanced and healthy, I would encourage you to get involved, try it, see what happens when you make that level of dedication to your spiritual growth. I cannot say I would heartily recommend this specific community. I think them, if you stay in the periphery, it's a beautiful place to be. It's when you start getting closer to the middle and you start to see some things that aren't so good. But I think that's often the case with a lot of organizations, a lot of things where they do really great work in the world, there's a lot of good, but you don't want to get too close to what's happening at the top or on the inside. I will say that one of the things that the ashram was totally wrong about, that I'm so grateful for, is we were told that you will never grow as much as you could here. That the connection to this teacher and this lineage and this tradition is so much more powerful than anything you'll find outside. And for me, I have grown just as much, if not more, since leaving this tradition. I learned to trust myself, to find other souls and other teachers and other traditions that really resonate with me, that I could learn from. It invited me to step into my power. And I've said this before, but had I stayed, I probably would not have achieved my full potential, because you could only grow so much before you would start to get pushed back down. Again, I don't want to speak bad about the people running it. I think they think they're doing really good work, and for a lot of people they're bringing a lot of benefit. Are there things that are troublesome? Absolutely. But I try to have grace and compassion to say everyone does the best they can. We're all human. And would I ever in a million years want to be a part of that tradition again? Hell no. But I'm grateful for the time and what it gave me, and it made me who I am in a large capacity. So it gave me a very strong foundation in my spiritual path and practice, and for that I am immeasurably grateful. And I'm also grateful that I severed ties with them, because it was one of the most profound moments of my spiritual life, to learn to trust myself and to head out on my own. So thank you for who asked if I could create a video on what was living in an ashram like. I hope this answered your question and provided a little more insight. And if you ever have a request for a video, please just let me know. I love responding to what people are curious about and creating content on it. Thanks for your time.